reclaiming the narrative. Why unseen art matters today. What if everything you knew about art history was missing entire chapters? In art history, we celebrate the same movements over and over: Impressionism, Cubism, abstract expressionism, but entire schools of thought, whole worlds of vision, have been left out of the spotlight. We'll journey through the eerie dreamscapes of symbolism, the bold decorative visions of Les Nabis, and the vibrant power of the Harlem Renaissance. Art history isn't a straight line, it's more like a tapestry. But some threads get pulled loose, forgotten, or even erased. By exploring these hidden movements, we don't just expand our knowledge, we change the way we see creativity itself. Whispers of the past, Symbolism's dark romantics. Symbolism was an artistic movement that rejected realism and naturalism in favor of expressing ideas, emotions, and inner visions. Rather than depict the external world, symbolists sought to give form to dreams, myths, and psychological states, often through allegory, mystery, and atmosphere. Symbolists like Odilon Redon gave us monsters peering out of the shadows. His Cyclops is less terrifying than lonely, a giant outsider longing for connection. Gustave Moreau painted myths like Oedipus and the Sphinx with a hallucinatory intensity, while Fernand Knopf's portraits blur the line between reality and dream. Symbolism wasn't about recording the world. It was about evoking moods, fears, and desires. Yet, because it didn't fit into the story of progress toward abstraction, symbolism often gets skimmed over in textbooks. But think about this. Without symbolism, could we have Klimt's golden visions? Here's something fascinating. Symbolist art wasn't just seen as mysterious. It was sometimes feared. Critics in the 1890s described these works as decadent or even dangerous, warning that too much exposure to such eerie, dreamlike imagery could corrupt the mind. In other words, these paintings weren't just ignored, they were actively resisted. That stigma might explain why symbolism never became the star of the textbooks, even though its psychological depth was far ahead of its time. This was art as psychological exploration, long before Freud made the subconscious fashionable. So tell me in the comments, are you more drawn to art that captures reality or art that explores the hidden world within? From obscurity to impact. Les Nabis, Bold New World. Out of symbolism grew a circle of young artists who called themselves Les Nabis, the prophets. The Nabis broke down the wall between fine art and applied arts. They weren't interested in simply painting what they saw. They wanted to transform how art lived in the world. Pierre Bonnard brought everyday scenes to life with glowing color. Edward Vuillard filled interiors with rich patterns that seemed to vibrate off the canvas. Maurice Denis declared, "Remember that a picture, before being a battle horse or a nude woman, is essentially a flat surface covered with colors assembled in a certain order." This was revolutionary. They weren't just painting, they were questioning the nature of painting itself. The Nabis broke down the wall between fine art and applied art. Posters, wallpapers, textiles. Suddenly, beauty belonged in daily life, not just museums. Their embrace of flowing line, stylized form, and decorative unity also made them important precursors to Art Nouveau. You can see their influence in the organic curves of Alphonse Mucha's posters and in the elegant integration of art and design that spread through architecture, furniture, and interiors at the turn of the century. The Nabis weren't only reimagining painting, they were helping to seed an entire aesthetic movement that shaped everyday life, not just museums. In many ways, they paved the road for the Bauhaus, for Matisse's cutouts, even for modern graphic design. So why don't we hear about them as much as Van Gogh or Cézanne? Maybe because they worked as a group, not as solitary geniuses. History loves the myth of the lone visionary, but the Nabis believed in collaboration, and that perhaps is why their legacy feels so modern today. Would you hang art on your walls if it was meant to be decorative? Or do you think art should always challenge us? I'd love to hear your take. The shadowed Renaissance, Harlem's unsung voices. Fast forward to the 1920s. Harlem, New York. The streets hum with jazz, poetry, and politics. The Harlem Renaissance was a cultural explosion. This was art created by Black artists for Black communities, a radical and empowering idea at the time. Writers like Langston Hughes and Alan Locke framed the Harlem Renaissance as the new Negro movement, urging artists to portray the modern Black subject with dignity and strength. Their collaboration with visual artists made this movement interdisciplinary, blending art, literature, music, and activism. Aaron Douglas, often called the father of African American art, created murals such as Aspects of Negro Life, a sweeping narrative that traces Black history from slavery through Reconstruction and into the modern city. His signature use of silhouetted figures, radiating light beams, and layered space became iconic, blending African motifs with Art Deco geometry. Archibald Motley brought the spirit of the Jazz Age to life in paintings like Nightlife and Black Belt, which pulse with saturated color, exaggerated movement, and a cinematic sense of drama. Motley's scenes document nightclubs, street corners, and bar rooms where Black culture thrived, portraying his subjects with pride and individuality. And sculptor Augusta Savage gave dignity to her subjects. Her harp, inspired by the song Lift Every Voice and Sing, became a centerpiece of the 1939 World's Fair. These artists captured both joy and struggle. They celebrated Black identity at a time when racism sought to erase it, and yet for decades, their contributions were minimized in mainstream art history. Why? Because the art history canon of the time was built on Eurocentric narratives, and their brilliance didn't fit the mold. Only in recent years have museums begun to give these artists the recognition they deserve. It reminds us that art history is never finished. It's constantly being rewritten. Have you ever discovered an artist whose work felt like it should have been in every textbook, but wasn't? These forgotten movements remind us that art history isn't a finished book, it's an evolving story. Symbolism dared to map the subconscious. Les Nabis blurred art and life. The Harlem Renaissance gave voice to a community's vision. Rediscovering these movements isn't just about the past, it's about how we see art today. It's about asking whose stories were silenced, whose colors were muted, and how can we widen the frame? So next time you walk into a museum or even scroll through images online, ask yourself, what's missing? Because sometimes the most powerful art isn't the one you've seen 100 times. It's the one waiting quietly in the shadows, ready to be rediscovered. You can support this channel by liking and sharing this video to hopefully reach another art enthusiast. See you next time.